Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Duthiers.
And I'm Kristine Johnson. Thanks for joining us. An historic nuclear deal with Iran has finally been reached between the U.S. and several key allies. The final agreement announced early this morning.
President Obama and Secretary of State John Kerry have declared the deal vital to security in the United States and in the Middle East. Listen.
Today, because America negotiated from a position of strength and principle, we have stopped the spread of nuclear weapons in this region. Because of this deal, the international community will be able to verify that the Islamic Republic of Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon.
What we did here is an effort to stop them from having a nuclear weapon. And President Obama is the only president who has actually rolled back their program for whatever period of time. I believe Israel and the region are safer with an Iran that does not have a nuclear weapon. And we believe we have long-term insight to their program and accountability and will, way into the future, as long as it's an issue, prevent Iran from being able to have a nuclear weapon.
All right, but not everyone is happy with the deal. The Israeli Security Cabinet unanimously rejected the Iranian nuclear agreement, saying Israel was not bound by it.
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out at the deal.
The world is a much more dangerous place today than it was yesterday. The leading international powers have bet our collective future on a deal with the foremost sponsor of international terrorism. What a stunning, historic mistake. Israel is not bound by this deal with Iran, and Israel is not bound by this deal with Iran because Iran continues to seek our destruction. We will always defend ourselves.
Joining us from Tel Aviv is former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who also served as defense minister under Benjamin Netanyahu. Thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
You heard President Obama and Secretary Kerry say, sir, that this deal, in fact, makes Israel safer. What is wrong with the deal from where you sit?
I think the deal is basically bad, I should admit. Basically, it allows Iran to turn into threshold nuclear power. It allows Iran to choose the time, not without risk, to try to break through and become a real nuclear power. It allows it to get out of the noose of the tight sanctions, and it allows it to keep sponsoring terror. In a way, it's a really new historic chapter in the geopolitical map of the Middle East. The world, including Russia and Europe, China, led by the United States of America, turned Iran in a way into recognized regional legitimate power. Basically turning it from being a part of the problem, as it used to be in the last 12 years, into, however, gradually part of the hopeful solution. And I'm quite worried that the Iranians will not play according to this script.
But Mr. Barak, as President Obama has stated, isn't it better to have at least somewhat access to the operations there in Iran, possibly stalling Iran's nuclear capabilities, even rolling it back some? Isn't that better than nothing?
It's not about nothing. I don't want to go now into the past. We cannot correct the past. We can look into the future. I think that there were more than one option to run this negotiation in a different way, with the, however, softly spoken, with a big stick in the background, with the readiness to use it, and probably we could have had a much better agreement, but that's part of the past. It's not part of the present. I think that by now the government of Israel should, first of all, launch a diplomatic effort trying to convince friends in Europe and the United States about the weaknesses of this agreement, but as well, and even more important, to resume immediately working relationship with the White House and President Obama to discuss behind closed doors what is the kind of intelligence gathering effort should be run in order to identify when and if Iran violate the agreement, what will be defined as a violation, what will be perceived as a smoking gun, and what circumstances could bring back the military option into consideration. This cannot be done through a public clash of statements. And we have to bear in mind, caring about Israel security, and having in mind that President Obama even today said America is committed, and he showed it, proved it in action all along his years. We have to keep the qualitative military edge of Israel over any neighbor, and to improve our capability for independent operation against Iran if the need arises. That cannot be provided to us by Slovenia or Lithuania. It could be provided only by the deep commitment and support of the United States. So we better do it, and the earlier, the better. And of course, we also have to do many other things. I think we have to engage our neighbors who are also frustrated, the Saudis, the Gulf states, Egypt, Jordan, in a gathering, probably under auspices of the same P5+1, to establish a regional security regime where we can tackle together the threat of radical Muslim terror, to balance the Iranian hegemonic and nuclear intentions, and to put an end to our conflict with the Palestinians, or try at least moving toward this target. I think it was due long time ago, but it is more urgent these days.
I guess a lot of people are wondering, these inspections that are going to happen, you don't think that they will be effective? Isn't it better, sir, and what people, the supporters of this deal are saying, is that Iran was headed towards this nuclear option with those sanctions in place. In other words, when the talks stalled back in 2006, Iran increased the number of centrifuges that they had to the some thousands that they currently have today. And this is a way of at least getting some kind of transparency in a program that before this deal, there was none.
Look, I suspect as long as the inspection is there, they can do very little, and I assume that they will not do anything to violate the agreement in the coming 6 months until sanctions are relieved and every other element is put on track. But from our experience, we suspect that at a certain point they will announce the inspectors as spies. They will argue that they are spying for Israel or for the United States or whatever, and they expel them. And by then you can't bring them back within less than half a year, with a lot of consequences. And it's easier to talk about snapping back sanction or about activating immediately
but isn't that better, sir?
Military options. It's easier said than done.
But isn't that better, sir, than having no option at all? The access that we're going to be granted now.
Vlad, it's the better alternative is a much tougher agreement. I don't want to go further and recommend other, even more extreme steps. But as a matter of fact, you know, in the last 35 years, there were 6 second-grade nations who tried to turn into nuclear military powers. 2 gave up along the way voluntarily. Libya of Gaddafi after Lockerbie, under pressure of the United States and UK. South Africa under different circumstances, regime change, and 2 were blocked by physical attack. This was Iraq and Syria, and the other 2, North Korea and Pakistan, turned nuclear. I well remember sitting as head of our intelligence with Bill Casey under Reagan, talking about Pakistan. All the same issues: how many centrifuges, how many sites, how many accumulated enriched uranium, do they try the plutonium approach as well? And the final result was, and Reagan was not supposed to be soft or hesitant, the decision was to give the Pakistanis 75 F-16 in order to raise their self-confidence in regard to India. Hopefully they will stop this agreement. It didn't happen. Many of these F-16 are now wired to carry Pakistani nuclear weapons. I remember very vividly sitting with President Clinton 5 years after a similar agreement had been achieved with North Korea. You can look at the archive and listen to Clinton talking almost verbatim with the same terms. And 5 years later, I sat down with him, looking at the satellite photos of the Yongbyon reactor around the curve of the within the curve of the river, with the same questions. How accurate is our munition? Can they penetrate the depths of some 200 feet underneath the ground? Will they hit the enriched material? What will happen if we touch the hot reactor and it will contaminate the river with many people living down the stream? And at the end of it, Clinton didn't want it to happen. But it happened, probably not during his term, but during the next term. So I cannot delude myself that it's going to be now as idyllic as we all expect. But I still prefer not to look into the future. We cannot correct the future. We can correct and influence we cannot correct the past, excuse me.
Correct,
we
yes.
can influence the future, and that's what we should be focused on.
We mentioned that President Obama mentioned earlier and made it very clear that he is still very concerned and this deal does not undermine America's concern with these threats to Israel from Iran. Are you concerned at all these past few months when negotiations were going on, this strained relationship that has now developed between the Prime Minister and the White House? Does that concern you?
You know, I don't want to make remarks about the actual relationship. We, Israel, have a clear interest. I hope the Americans have a similar interest in having good working relationship. America and its support is a cornerstone of the security and positioning of Israel and its military options as well as its diplomatic kind of protection. And I think that we contribute a lot to America in terms of our intelligence, our understanding of nuances. And we should focus on this. And if there are strained relationships, they should be corrected. We should initiate it, and we expect the Americans to take into account, even with the, most tightly connected families, there are sometimes quarrels. We have to put them behind us. The challenges are too important. And I should admit that President Obama, under his administration in the last 6.5 years, Israel enjoyed unprecedented cooperation with the military, with the American Armed Force, with the Pentagon, with the American intelligence community, and very generous support for the strength of Israel. We hope that and expect it to continue.
Mr. Former Prime Minister, I was looking over an article from back in March in the Washington Post entitled, "Another Nation Blazed the Trail for Iran in Developing a Nuclear Program," sir. And it was talking about the double standard that perhaps exists with Israel's nuclear program and now what you're seeing perhaps in Iran. Isn't it, sir, maybe something that, has it ever been considered, you as Defense Minister, to perhaps be the beacon, be the light in the region of the Middle East and perhaps become party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Israel is not a party to as of now?
I don't think that I have to go now into the details. I just want to mention one issue. Israel is unique, not being just the only real democracy in the Middle East, but being the only probably country on earth where so many neighbors would like to see disappearing and sometimes explicitly threatening to destroy it. And you know, as long as they had just, amusing park or whatever, a good theater, so good university, that's not a problem. But when the same regime which declares that they want to destroy or eliminate Israel from map and history, try to acquire nuclear weapons, we are really worried, and duly so.
Well, it was so nice to hear your point of view regarding this deal with Iran. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, we know it's late in the night there. We do appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.